Hi there. In this screencast, we're going to finish up this layout. So we've got some colors in place. We've got some elements defined in our HTML document. The last thing we're going to do is give the elements some dimension, as well as place elements within elements, and we need a little bit more white space. Notice that some of this text is a little close to the edge and whatnot. So I'm going to go back to brackets. I'm going to open up brackets, and everything I do here, I believe I'm done with my index.html. I can make this a bit wider, by the way. So everything I'm doing for the last little bit will be in screen.css. So I'm done with my body. The only thing I needed there was the background color. I'm just going to work from the top of the document down, so the page would be my next thing. First of all, I'm just going to give this some dimension. So the page, I'm going to say max width. So what we do with max width is if a screen is less than the max width, then the layout will resize. And there's a little trick to get the page to center within the screen. So by the page I mean that div element. It could be page or container. So you choose margin 0 auto, and that actually centers your entire layout. I'm just going to add that as a comment, just so you know what the heck I'm talking about, or remember later on if you add this to your own code. And the position, now this one I had a hard time with when I first started coding CSS. Position relative is the positioning rule or style you use for an element that contains other elements that you want to position absolutely within the page, or element I should say. So we'll be able to actually see what the heck that means with our nav in our header. And I'm also going to add a font family. So let me just quickly add this, and then I'll give you a URL for an article about how fonts work. So Candera, there's a little write-up about Candera. It's my favorite because it's designed to be a very readable screen font, as well as Verdana. Now, if the system that the user is looking at this website on doesn't have either of these, so if the system doesn't have Candera, then it'll look for Verdana. If it doesn't have Verdana, then it'll look for any old sans serif font. So the typical arrangement there is 3 choices. Now this is something, line height, I usually use 1.4 because I read somewhere that that is the perfect amount of white space. And EM means empirical measurements. So for example, 1.4, if the font size, we're just using the stock font size, but if the font size, for example, is 20 pixels, then it would be 1.4 times 20 pixels, if that makes sense. Now let's quickly see what we have so far. So I'll go File, Save, and bring it up, refresh it. Much better now that we got rid of that Times New Roman. All right, and continuing on. Oh, let me just show you that max width effect. So I'm just going to move this over so you can see. So I'm resizing my document window. See, notice there, it's got to 1200. So that's the max width. It will get no larger than 1200, but it also, if you resize the window, there is no mid width. you can actually add a minimum width as well, but you notice that everything is dynamically rearranging itself to that window size. So basically, max width is a dynamic dimension to the window size. It'll get no larger than 1200, which is useful if you have an image that you don't want to tile or something like that. All right, let's move along in our CSS. So let's start on header here. We've already got a background color, so I'm going to go into that rule that's referred to as, and I'm also going to give this thing some dimension. I'm just going to say height. We're not too worried about max height, min height, because we can always scroll down, right? And I'm going to say 100 pixels. And there's a couple of different ways to give things dimension. Empirical measurements, pixels, percentage. And again, we're going to have something absolutely positioned within the header, which is going to be the nav. So position relative will allow us to absolutely position things within it. That's what that means. It doesn't really seem like it means that, but that's what it is. And I'm also going to add a rule for that that H1. So if we have another H1, which you shouldn't ever have in a document, you should only do, or sorry, if we have another H1, this will only take care of the header H1. So this is called a compound selector. So this means any H1 inside of any element within an H1 tag within header tags will pick up this style. And I'm going to say padding, and let me just show you this real quick. 20 pixels. So what that means is between the edge of the header, so this is 100 pixels tall, from the edge of the header, from the inside edge of the header, there'll be 20 pixels before there's any content. That's what padding is. Margin is on the outside of that. Now we can express this. What this means, will be 20 pixels above, 20 pixels right, 20 pixels below, and 20 pixels on the left as well. But we can also do something like this, padding top 20 pixels, or padding right 20 pixels, or padding bottom. If I just bring this back, you can see all of the options, right? We can also, with less text, we can basically go from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So if I want 20 pixels on the top, but only 5 pixels on the left, and 15 pixels on the bottom, and maybe 19 pixels on the left, that's how we express it. So that's basically, I like to think of it around the clock. There's some other methods people use to help you remember that. But it could be 12, it's 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock always. So clockwise around the clock. I'm just going to go back to the 20 pixels though. So if you want specific values, that's my favorite way of expressing those. Now, let's take a look at what this looks like. Starting to look pretty good. Now you'll notice that this nav is overlapping because it's more than 100 pixels tall. We'll see how to fix that in a bit. And everything's basically very flush to the edge, so we want to add some padding for a lot of these, but you notice this one has 20 pixels there and there. Alright, continuing on. So let's work on the navigation next. So we've already got a background color there. Let's go with position, absolute, and I'm going to say top 57 pixels. I already worked with this layout a bit, so I know it's 57 pixels exactly to bring it to the bottom edge of the header. And left, 0 pixels. And width, we want the navigation to fill the header. Now I also want to take care of that list item within the navigation. So first of all, I want to get rid of the bullets. Let me just quickly change the font color so we can see how the text looks presently, so we can see what we're changing. So I'm just going to quickly add a rule for the text. So it's nav ul lia. So anchor tags within list items within lists within the nav will be white, which is FFF. I only know a couple of hexadecimal codes. And by the way, I said 6 characters. If those characters double up, you can just use 3. So for example, white is FF, FF, FF. So you can just use FF, F. So if something, for example, was CC6600, you could just use C60. And you'll see that those come up all the time. And I get an indication of what that is. Alright, so let's take a look at the layout so far so you can see what we're doing in these next few steps. So, you can't actually see it either, you can't see the bullets, but let me just change the list item. I'll remove this later, just so you can see it for now. There we go. So you see we have bullets and we have underlines, and this text is vertically arranged. We want it spread out across this thing. This is going to be a nav bar, horizontal nav bar that is, and we want to get rid of all of this stuff. Also, when we mouse over each of these links, we want them to light up. We want to have them give us a visual representation that they do something. So you want some feedback, basically. So that's what we're taking care of in the next one. First of all, let me just get rid of that. I just added that so we could see what we wanted to remove. And now I'll add some navul stuff. So first of all, list style none. That gets rid of the bullets. We're going to get rid of, there's a margin already that comes with the default styles. So we're just going to clear any margins that happen to be there. And then we're just going to give this a bit of padding as well. So 0px, 0px, 0px. We could also say padding right in this situation. And let's do a little bit of stuff in the li as well. So this part takes care of the horizontal position, or I should say arranging the links in a horizontal manner. Now there's a problem with this, and if you float something left, it happens to the entire layout from this point forward unless you do something else, which I'll show you in a minute. Let me just see if it's happening right now. Sometimes, depending on the browser, it doesn't always flow through. Oh, nice. So there we go. Got rid of the bullets. This is now horizontal. We just need to get these spaced out and get rid of the underline. So in navul li a, That's what gets you underlined. We're going to say, first of all, display and inline block. That makes the text a big block as opposed to individual characters. We've already got a color there. Let's add some padding so they're not all squished together. And if you use two numbers, by the way, this will be vertical and horizontal, top, bottom, left, right. To get rid of the underline, it's text decoration, none. And then width, this is for each list item. And let's see what this looks like now. So we could make those a little, each one of those blocks a little narrower, and then they're guaranteed to fit. I'll just quickly do that. So they're presently 125 pixels. Why don't we just make them 100 pixels? Then I won't have to resize the layout all the time to take a look at how everything is coming together. There we go, nice. And I could just drop that down one more pixel as well. So I could say, beautiful. Now this is the color of the page. This is the nav bar, this is the header, and this is section main. Now let's quickly add the visual feedback to this nav bar. By the way, nav bars take a lot of time. I've spent 12 hours on a nav bar that looks like that one in a Drupal layout before. So make sure you hold on to this CSS, because it's a very standard CSS to make your horizontal nav bar. Alright, so as I was mentioning, if you float something left, sometimes elements that follow that item remain floated left. So I'm just going to remove that eventuality. So this is nav, and then after. This is called a pseudo selector. So basically everything after nav. And now we're just going to clear any floats. So again, things will tend to float left for after that element, so this ensures that they don't. Now, let's take a quick, we'll quickly add that visual feedback. And that's also a pseudo selector. Gorgeous. Look at that. Again, the colors are a little jarring. So right now it's right up to the edge, so now we're just going to add some padding. So main, padding, 20 pixels. And I think that should do it. Beautiful. So let me just quickly show you an article about where to read a bit more about fonts. So this will give you a little bit of information about each of the ones I've used, plus a bunch of other common fonts and why we choose the fonts that we do. It is so you can make your own choices as far as your fonts are concerned, as far as your colors are concerned. use the dimensions that I used for everything to begin with, until you've got yourself a nice tight layout, and then you can change things if you like, if you have some preferences. But these are good starting points for most layouts. So again, apply all of this stuff to Athena's resume, and then upload a zip file containing your entire site. So I need your index file at least, plus your CSS folder, plus your screen.css document inside of it. So it's best just to upload a zip file containing all of that stuff. Thanks so much for watching.